Good morning. My name is Jessica, and I'm here with my husband, Brad. We have been married for 16 years, and we have two boys. And we had a very happy, supposedly happy life. And then things changed. I was a teacher, Brad was in administration, and I did not know that he was gambling until he got put on leave from his job.
Uh, on December, I don't know, 14th, I think it was at a board meeting, and pretty much they put me on leave because I was not doing my job as a superintendent from the perspective I was leaving work to go gamble. Uh, Personally, I thought it was okay because I was putting in 40 to 50 hours at the job, but I was also putting in 50 or 60 hours in the casino a week. So it doesn't take a mathematician to figure out I was not sleeping. Uh, so once they did this, I had to come home. I had to tell my wife. She obviously had no clue about it. And then from there, our walls came down. Uh, we called my best friend and we called a pastor, started talking through this. And then they gave us their advice or our advice, what they would think needs to be done, and from there, um, we waited until the next day. Next day, we got a hold of the lawyer, and I don't even remember. I think his name was Denny. And they must have been building this case against me for a while because he had all the information, including the criminal charges, everything from like the board meeting was on a Tuesday. He had all the information on Wednesday, and we knew what we were facing from that day forward. Uh, it ended up being I was charged with theft in office. I was charged with uh, oh,
Mileage.
no, falsifying records, and some reason I was charged with obstructing justice. I think is what the final charge was. I don't know why, but when it came down to it, what uh, I had to pay back was the time I left work. So we ended up paying right around 32,000, and then we had to pay for the audit fee, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, I think it was 10K.
Yes.
Uh, so we ended up paying the district like 45, 46,000, I think total. Uh, but in the news, it was big media circus. It was saying I was taking it from this, taking it from that. When it came down to, they built me for time leaving work or whatever you want to call it. And what they did was they looked at my casino play card based on the hours I should have been at work. And I guess that's how they came up with that number. Both of our kids went to the school I was at as a superintendent. And then the bad thing about it is our whole life was, I guess, wrapped in education. So everybody I knew worked for the district I worked for. So you couldn't talk to anybody because they were told but threatened pretty much with their jobs if they talked to me. So it pretty much put us on an island, and that's where it was a real struggle. I could only talk to my best friend and then our pastor and my wife, and that was about it.
And that's a pretty isolating place to be too. And it was so public of a situation that it was very difficult on our kids and on me. And it was just a really difficult time to try to work through both the realization of the gambling and how much time he was spending, and the financial difficulties that we were definitely facing, and the criminal aspect of the charges that were brought. So it affected everything about our lives?
At that point, we had a lawyer. His name was Jim. And with the comments I was making, they decided to take me. Jessica and my best friend took me to Harding Hospital at Ohio State University, which they admitted me. But in order to go there, you had to go through Wexner's emergency room. And then finally, they got me admitted to the Mental Health Institute. I ended up spending like, I don't know, it was like December 22nd to January 8th or 9th in a lockdown facility up there where they were helping me with my thoughts and what happened. But then when the January, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd came about, it was a struggle because it was like, okay, you're going to release me, but what do we do from here? And there was no answers. Nobody knew anything. I mean, you could go to addiction clinics, but I wasn't addicted to heroin. I didn't have any other addictions in my life. It was strictly gambling. I don't drink. So it was hard for me to find a spot. What was that lady's name? Do you remember her? No, the blonde. Rebecca started searching, and then what we decided to do is I'd go through partial hospitalization program there at Harding. And what that meant is I spent the next 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, going through their full day program. And then after that, there was a half day program, which I believe ran for 8 days. I could be wrong. And then during that time, I was counseled by Amy. Forgive me, I forget her last name. And she helped out a lot. And she also referred me to Andy Sears in Worthington. And so that's where I at least had that to see a counselor after I was done with the partial hospitalization. The other thing was during this time, Rebecca and Amy started talking with Maryhaven, and we made a connection with Bruce Jones there. And with this right here, this Harding for help, Jess had to be really persistent. I mean, you guys would not believe how hard it was. I mean, they were going to send me to addiction centers that dealt with coke addicts, other addictions. I mean, they got them for everything. But with the gambling, I mean, nobody was technically, understood it. I mean, it's not new, but it's fairly new to Ohio since the casinos came in. And then during this time, we did Jess being persistent. We finally found someone, and then the next slide I think talks about Bruce.
Yeah. Well, in our county, where we live, there was no counselors. I searched and searched, and then even when we went to Harding, they were initially wanting to release him a lot earlier with really no path or no plan, because their goal was stabilization. So it really took a lot of, I don't want to say pushing, but a lot of persistence to make them understand the depth of this issue, and that we really needed some support from someone who understood the gambling disorder and how this had disrupted our lives, because we were relying and leaning on people maybe with other addictions to try and get support for how to handle this. But we were really looking for someone who knew something about gambling. And I think a lot of people felt that this was not a disorder, that, it's something that he chose to do. And so it was looked at a little bit differently and kind of debated almost in the papers on the front page for quite some time. The media was here at the house, and we had a lot of that, of trying to understand the addiction itself. And I know that Scott Anderson, that's how him and I met, was that he was commenting on the side of this being a disorder, and kind of going back and forth with the newspapers about that, and understanding that gambling itself is a difficulty for people just like drinking or just like drugs. So that issue was definitely present, and finding support was really difficult that focused on someone who understood the gambling side.
Hey, Derek. So can he talk?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Do we need to, do you want me to answer this question? I see we had a question.
Sure. You can either ask the question or answer the question as we work through, or we'll pause for the question and answer section at the end. So as the questions pop through, then I'll send them your way, and then you can address them whenever and wherever. The rest of the audience can't see the question, though, so if you could say what the question is and then answer it, or I can mention it when we're at the question and answer area.
Well, if you don't care, I mean, I'll answer this one now because it kind of goes back to one of our first areas. Said, at what point did you realize that gambling was a problem for you? I didn't. Not until I lost my job. I mean, I didn't think I had a problem. I mean, I was going out having fun. I thought I was doing my job. I was kind of keeping in my mind that I was working 40 or 50 hours a week, not necessarily the hours they wanted me to work. So I didn't think I had a problem. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I don't think I knew I had a problem until after I was in Harding.
The first couple of weeks there just seemed like he didn't realize that.
So to answer that, I wish I could give you an exact date, but it was probably someplace, I don't know, a week or two after I was caught. So, and you still, I don't know how other people feel about it, but I think any addict would probably tell you that they may have knew, question it at times, but they never had the, I guess, the wherewithal to say, hey, I have a problem, let's get help. The other thing you got to remember too with me is I was pretty arrogant. I mean, and very competitive with sports. I mean, I went to college on a baseball scholarship. I never had any issues as far as being competitive. I think I looked at gambling as something that where I could beat the house or beat the odds. I hardly lost in life as far as athletics go, and I think that carried on to my gambling problem. I think it was, for not to do a sports analogy, but with as a pitcher, I never thought I was done pitching until I realized that I couldn't go out there and pitch anymore. What drew me to gambling is, the second question was it about gambling that drew me to it? It's just the competitiveness. I was trying to beat whatever game I was sitting in front of. I knew I could beat it. I knew I liked the thrill of it. And some of you may find this odd, but I never touched a single alcoholic drink the whole time I was gambling. So I was in the right state of mind as far as being in there. I knew what I was doing. I wasn't like drunk or anything such as that. A funny story is I was there so much that I knew people there, but in the back of my mind, this is how sick it was, as I was saying, man, that person's there a lot. Well, only way I would know that if I was there as much as they were. So, I mean, I think just the competitiveness, just the chance that you could win this big pot of money drew me to it. But then even once I won that big pot of money, I couldn't leave. So at one point, I think it was about the money, but then it was just about being in action, being in front of this screen, being in front of this monitor, playing cards, whatever it may be. I just think it was about being there after a while. It felt like, I mean, in GA, they mentioned that you felt like you belong, and that's kind of what it was. So, what happened?
He just flipped it. So we did not live in Franklin County where Mary Haven
Ask me
was
to back up.
based. So if you could go back one slide, Derek.
Yeah.
So normally, we didn't realize this until much later, but you had to live within that county. We were really desperate at that point. I remember calling Bruce from a parking lot in Columbus because I was taking Brad back and forth to Harding and to the outpatient program after that. And he never mentioned that to me, I think because he knew how desperate we were at that point. And he just said, come on in. And so that's how we ended up at Mary Haven, because our county did not have any services. I had called, I had searched online, I had talked to everybody I could think to talk to. And then when I was at Harding, I begged them and I said, we have to have a place to go after this inpatient, outpatient program. So they set us up with a really good personal counselor for Brad, which is Andy Sears. But I was also looking for this, kind of program. And that's where Mary Haven came into play. It just happened to pop up with Rebecca, who worked at Harding. And so we called there, and that's how we started off at Mary Haven.
Once we got there, he took us both, and we did a couple therapy session. I completed the assessment, which we didn't need an assessment to realize I had a major problem. But one assessment you don't want to score high on, I did score high on. So he agreed to continue to see us.
You can flip it, Derek, to the next one, please.
Bruce really became our savior. I went to him once a week. We went up there. I hate to say this, but we kind of became the poster child for Mary Haven's Gambling Addiction Center. We've done commercials for him. We've done brochures for him. We've done different speaking engagements for him. The thing that concerns me is this state money, I guess, is supposed to go help each county, or that goes to each, I don't know, some kind of board. The Adam board, whatever it may be. And what happened was,
we lost our slide, Derek, just so you know. There we go.
Yeah, I was pulling up Mary Haven's website and lost it there. So
no, go
keep
ahead.
on talking and I'll pull it up.
Yeah, that would be great.
With
The funding.
The funding, you guys have your backs against the wall because it has to go through like Adam boards and things like that. That's what it is in Franklin County. I don't know if it's like that statewide, but it's not enough funding to have a complete counselor. So what happens is they'll send somebody to get a 1 or 2 day gambling certification or addiction certification, and then you guys have your backs against the wall because you're trying to help all the other addicts, and then on top of that, they're throwing this in. I wish the money could be sent to a central location, and in that central location, or counselors decide, professionals decide. But yeah, there's her video.
I think
That's a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
So with Mary Haven, they have helped us realize that, hey, yeah, it's a problem, but they've also have shown us that there is a life after gambling. And
yeah, we felt that, our situation was a little bit different because it was very public. And so that's why we were completely okay with sharing our story. We just were at a point where it was already everywhere. It wasn't something that we ever planned to do, but Mary Haven just helped us so tremendously. And we thought if we could show people that there is life, there is an opportunity for you. We know that the suicide rates are very high, and we understand that going through it because you lose so much so fast. And sometimes, like in our situation, the spouse is not aware. So the person just feels like there's no way out. And so for us, it really could be a matter of life and death for other people. And so when that question was presented to us, would you mind, talking about it? We were willing to do that for the sake of other people.
And I think you have to give back. I mean, I think they've helped us so much and so long. And to be honest with you, most gambler situations, they're a one paragraph note at the bottom of the 50th page of a newspaper. And unfortunately, in our situation, I think I was on the front page several times. You come from a small town, there's not much to read about. So this was the biggest story of 2014 into early 2015. So whether we wanted it or not, it was out there. And you either embrace it or you try to hide from it or run from it. Right now, we're not even, I don't even, to be honest, I keep my addiction next to me, but I don't sit there and worry about it every day. I've moved on. I've not gambled a day since December 14th of 14, and I don't ever plan on doing it again. But I think if you get arrogant and you don't keep reality right next to you as far as the addiction side of it, I think I could fall back into it if I get arrogant or if I realize or I think I can gamble like other people. So, but Bruce keeps me grounded, and that's the thing is, and I know that like Andy's really good, Andy Sears is really good, Bruce Jones is really good. They tell you about reality, and Amy at Harding was. I mean, they snapped me out of my arrogance and put me into reality. I mean, I think Amy told Jessica when I got home she needed to lay on the couch and make me do everything she was doing the past 5 years. So that was hard to hear, and it kind of sucked too for me, knowing that she was doing all this, but it was also a life lesson. I mean, sometimes you don't know what's going on until you feel it yourself. And then once I felt it, it was reality set in.
Yeah, and we did that too. When he came home, he did take over a lot of different things to kind of have that experience of what that was like.
Okay.
We can go to the next one.
The treatment, when I said there, we could not begin our treatment until I was completely honest, it wasn't treatment as per se with Harding and all that, because when I was at Harding, it was such a blur. I can't tell you what I did, what happened, or anything like that. What I meant by that is for us to move forward as a married couple, I had to be honest. Like I couldn't tell any like white lies. I couldn't even say this was this, that was this. I mean, it just had to be, here's the truth. And we had to relive some of the terrible times, and it was a struggle. I remember we had to remove certain people from our lives just so we could spend time together. And I mean, even a year into it, we had our issues just because if somebody would say something, Jess would tend to believe them over me. And that was the time. I mean, right now, I mean, there's no lies, there's nothing. I mean, this is what it is. I mean, whether she wants to hear it or not, do I have times where I have short temper and I get aggravated? Absolutely. But I think that's part of life. I think everybody has that at some point in their life. But ours, I mean, it sucks. I mean, it does. I mean, there's certain things like when you have to relive certain things. I mean, I spent 6 months in the county jail. And to be honest with you, I got 5 years probation. I made it out of that pretty good. I mean, did the 6 months suck? Absolutely. But it also gave me time to sit back and reflect. And it also gave me a chance to not have that chance during a critical 6 month period of going back out and starting all this process over again. Uh, but it was hard. It was hard on me. It was hard on the kids. I had to come clean with my kids. My kids understand that. We all love each other now. Uh, well, as far as I know, they all love me still. But it's a time that I don't like to go back to. I think Amy told me you got 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future, and you're pissing on the present. So we try to live today and not for today, and look at our future ahead of time, not so much here. So.
And I think that facing those really tough things at the time when we needed to face them enables us to live the way we do now, which is really happy and not living there anymore. We obviously have an understanding that this never goes away, but we've completely rebuilt our lives and our relationship and how we were dealing with each other. And I mean, I definitely had codependency issues as well. So I needed to work through all of that and make myself a priority when I wasn't doing that back then. So yes, by facing those things and dealing with the really tough stuff head on, then you do get to a place where you can talk about this and have it not destroy you, and live a healthy, happy life. And I think that's really important for people to know, that that is an option, that you can get to a point where you're happy again.
The hard part for me was I had to earn the trust back. I mean, you're not going to, and I wanted it done within a 24-hour period. That didn't happen, and it won't happen. Anytime I would stretch the truth or lie, I mean, it would put questions back in her mind. Well, is he ever going to change? Can he ever tell me the truth again? The other thing is, too, all my life, I was the one telling people what to do, or I was in control of the situation. And now I had to change my attitude and be willing to listen and take criticism. I can't overstretch the fact that, and any of you that were in high school or college sports, when you're successful, you hang the moon. And no matter what you did, it was taken care of. But now, I mean, you had to be able to move on and drop all that and be understanding that everything isn't the way you want it. Everything's not going to happen the way you want it. And you had to listen and take charge of the moment at the time. And you had to be able to take the criticism. If somebody said, you can't do this, you can't do that, why are you doing that? You're doing that wrong. I mean, that was a struggle. So, and the other thing is I can't move on without addressing what happened. I mean, I couldn't just come home on Tuesday, on Wednesday, forgot about it and relive my life. I mean, there was some detrimental effects to everybody. So I had to address all that.
And it's really hard, because if somebody lies to you and they've been lying to you for a long period of time and you didn't know it, I did question things, and he would always come up with a really good explanation. He was working a busy job, and it made sense for him to be gone. So I can't blame myself for any of that I didn't see it, because I feel like the level of manipulation was superior. And he's very intelligent and he's very, very smart. And so I had to come to grips with the fact that he'd been lying to me, because that was a new thing for me. I had no idea that had been happening. So I had to wrap my mind around that. And then we had to rebuild from that. And it wasn't always easy. And it wasn't like we just didn't have any problems. I mean, we had to talk about if we were going to stay married, and if we were going to be a family, or what was going to happen with us as a couple during those times. So it wasn't just you're forgiven type of situation. And I had to be open to forgiving him. I compare this to grieving a death. I mean, we've had a lot of loss in our family, and what the life that I knew is not what I thought it was, So I had to go through those steps of being angry and making a decision that I was going to be able to forgive him or not. And we've talked to a lot of people along the way in the past few years, and sometimes people aren't willing to start over. So if you're really genuinely not willing to, then maybe it's best that you don't. So I had to ask myself those types of questions. Is this something that I genuinely can forgive, or isn't it? And that's very difficult. They are the hardest, most gut-wrenching conversations and things to go through. And sometimes I just didn't even know how I was going to do them. But you do it and you face it, and you lean on people, you lean on support when you need it. And I had to become familiar with this addiction too, because I did not know anything about it. So I had to really do a lot of research myself and understand what was going on, and the effects that this was having on his brain, and what the underlying causes were with depression or whatever was going on at the time needed to be treated, and not just the gambling itself, but the underlying causes of it. So all of those types of things, I really had to educate myself to help with the situation.
Some of the financial challenges, obviously, I was a superintendent making good money. I lost my job. So we went from a 2-income family to a 1-income family. But that wasn't the worst part of it. The worst part of it was the debts and bills that were not being paid. I mean, I had it all figured out as I could wait here on this bill, wait here on this bill, kind of just forget about other bills. It was tough. I mean, it was a 5-hour-a-day job trying to figure out how I can not pay certain things and still not get phone calls to the house. And the phone calls, they're towards the last 6 to 8, 12 months probably. The phone calls started coming and things like that. And it was just a mess. I mean, trying to figure all that out. Luckily, Jess, at that point, I was controlling all the money, and she had to take her time and go through all these bills when I was in Harding and figure it all out. And I'm sure that was as overwhelming could be. And we had to find a good financial advisor to help us get through this and help us deal with some of these creditors. I mean, and figure out, okay, how do we get them paid off? How do we do this? How do we do that? And it took time, and lots of time. I mean, but the biggest thing was, as GA says, the financial challenges are probably the easiest to solve. I mean, you find that your path you're going to take and you stay on it and you do it. The hurt you cause to your family and family members is the roughest part of it all. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think people feel like, I hear different people say I'm just in too deep, and that's where these really upsetting thoughts come in, that there's no way that they can fix that financial situation. But we were in a lot of trouble. I mean, we owed money. Bills, like he said, bills weren't paid. We were in debt. On top of that, there was criminal fees, and there was money that needed to be paid back to the school district, a large amount of money. So we had this enormous financial burden. And if you beg people, if you are genuine with people, they will help you. It's not that I had a ton of money, because I didn't have any. We were in debt. But I found really good people in my path if I was persistent enough and genuine enough, that I really needed their help. So we found people to do this work for us cheap, and to hire associates and things like that, to, instead of the main lawyers, just to get better rates. And it was worth it, because they were able to help me navigate. I did all the groundwork, and then they helped me with the persistence of the creditors, because they were calling nonstop. And I imagine the stress of that on him leading up to him getting caught was enormous.
And I'm happy to report today, other than my student loans, we are debt free. We paid everything off, all the school district, all of our creditors. Now, obviously, we've accrued some debt because we bought a new car, things like that. Our credit scores were in the low 600s. Probably mine was in the high 500s. Right now, I know for a fact Jessica's is back up in the 700s, and mine's right there too. So we've done a lot to fix that. But to be honest with you, I think financial challenges are stressful, but it's not going to solve your problem. So.
Right.
Jess did all this. She had to figure out through our helpers or our associates what were the top priorities. What do we do? Who do we pay off first? What do we have to do? Obviously, we had to pay the school back first, and we had to pay some other people off, but we took it one step at a time. I mean, and how did we survive the change of income? Well, that went it was difficult, but at the same time, I had a retirement income or a retirement 401k, whatever you want to call it, that helped us through some of this, and we were able to pay for a lot of it. The money in me right now, I do have a debit card. Jessica, I do not have access to look at the checking account. Jessica keeps up with that. So she questions me when things are spent or whatever. But to be honest with you, most of my stuff right now, my charges are to put gas in our cars. If I got to go out and get money for certain people, normally she'll put it in an envelope. I'll give it to the person, and she'll either text this person and ask them if they got it or whatever, or she'll just write a check, which is no good for me to take out. But as far as it goes now, we are still on. I don't know, I'll probably carry $20 with me, maybe, if that. Most of the time I don't have any money. But it's reality. I mean, the more money I have, the more likely I think, well, I could go change this $200 into $1,000. I mean, there's no way I could. I mean, there's points where I think I could handle it, and sometimes I have to, just because my kids are involved with different things and I have to pay for certain things. Well, most of the time we do a pretty good checks and balances and keeping track of it through a debit card. She knows if I withdraw $10 or if I withdraw $200. I mean, it's pretty much all there and documented. So there's nothing I can do. Well, I guess if I wanted to bad enough, there's always ways to get around it, but I'm not looking for the ways to get around it. I'm looking for ways to make my life better. And how do we get out of debt? We just, like I said, we use those people. I mean, we relied on other people that were smarter with financial stuff than we were. I can tell you now that having good friends has helped a lot. Right now, I'm currently working at a job. I started there, when did that? May of last year. I started as a safety person. I moved up from safety to facilities manager or supervisor, facilities and safety supervisor. And then about 3 weeks ago, was told I'm taking over the warehouse and being over warehouse facilities, safety, and janitors. So I went from, in a 10-month time, I went and I've made 3 jumps. So I know what I'm doing as a person. I just couldn't do it as I was gambling. I do have good managerial skills. Our lives are happy. Right now, I'm probably I probably make about the same by the time I get my bonus at the end of the year in my job now as I did as a superintendent. So things have come full circle, but at the same time, it's not been easy.
Well, and I think he had to be willing to take that lower level job in a trailer in the parking lot, and take that step down in that reality of this is where I am right now. So I think for people that, you know, don't see a way out, you have to be willing to realize that the things that have happened are going to put you where you are, but there is hope for you to still excel and have a successful life, even though you did these things in the past because of your addiction. And as far as the money goes, too, yes, he asks me to limit his money. That is something initially that we did together. I think that he, you know, the books and things, the research I've done does tell you to watch the finances. But at the end of the day, I know that I can't control him, and I know that he's his own person. And so I think the spouse can do that somewhat, but also realize that it's not their responsibility. It's the gambler's responsibility to make sure that they're healthy and they're making the right choices.
And from your guys' perspective, I think it would be great if the state would fund whole family support services. So much time is spent on the addict when it needs to also be spent on the people that he or she has affected. They don't always understand why this person has done this. Why are they doing it? He must not love me. He must hate me. Why is he destroying my family? It's not about that. I mean, it's about this person. There's something wrong in their brain where they get in a casino and they can't control themselves. And that's the tough part. I mean, I know, like with us, I mean, you guys are the central focus point when I say counselor, is because I know GA is functional, but not to slam GA, but just remember with GA, you're getting help from the same screwed up people that you are. And it's tough. I mean, you're getting advice from people. Yeah, they may be clean for 10 years or whatever, but their thought process is similar to your thought process. So you got to be careful and you got to be smart enough to distinguish between, oh, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. A lot of guys that come into GA, they may not be as intelligent as everybody else. And I think sometimes they take that role or that advice and put it to use. Well, GA doesn't focus on the family and everybody else. I think with GA, they also have Gam-Anon. Well, Gam-Anon only is as good as the person running it. And there's not a lot of information out there. And normally that's once a week or once a month, I should say, in GAs. They'll have like one GA meeting a week, but then the Gam-Anon comes up like the first GA meeting of every month. They'll have this session. But once again, they are not professionals. They're just people that have been affected by a gambler, which I think some of that advice is good, but I think the state of Ohio needs to realize, yes, that's a free service, but that's not the service that everybody needs. They need professional help, like professional advice on how you support your children, how you support your wife, how do you support your significant other. I mean, what they need to know to understand the addict. I mean, I can sit here and tell my story 500 times to somebody, and just how I went through stuff doesn't mean I can affect or my decisions is going to help them. I'm not sure. I mean, everybody lives their different life. I mean, they don't know my wife at GA, and she doesn't know the people. Jessica doesn't know the people that I talk with at GA. So I don't know how they could make a determination. You can listen to their story and say, oh, well, I'm not as screwed up as I thought, but they're all the same. So
that's why we like the counseling component too. It's just having both, for us anyway, having both, hearing other people's stories is helpful, but then also getting a professional perspective. And that's what Mary Haven was able to provide for us. And Andy Sears.
Yeah, Andy Sears has helped out a lot.
And we initially at Harding even. we even initially at Harding did some group sessions as well with both of us. So his first counselor brought us in the inpatient program and talked to both of us. And then from that point on, we did sessions with Bruce as well.
A couple of the questions were, what recommendations do you have for families and members impacted by gambling? I think personally, I think it's you guys. I mean, I think you guys need to really get a chance to sit down with everybody involved, or not with everybody, but with the spouse and the person, and talk through it. The people like Jessica, in order for her to help me, she has to understand it. Now, I'm grateful that she's a fluent reader, and Amy put her on the books, Andy put her on the books, Bruce put her on the books. She had websites. She was able to talk to somebody else. She needs her own type of gambling specialist. Counselor, a gambling counselor. I mean, because I can go send her to a regular counselor. Well, if they don't understand the gambler as a whole, then I don't know if her answers can be correctly answered. I mean, her questions could be correctly answered. I think the counselor needs to be willing to meet with the wife and the husband. And at least, I think we met with Andy 3 or 4 times, and she met with him by himself. And the counselor needs to be honest. I mean, I think it's up to the gambler too. I sign release papers for everybody. Jessica was allowed to call him up and talk about my therapy, talk about anything. That's the only way it worked. I mean, because if there was some fear that my counselors thought I was diving off to the deep edge or doing something different, or if I needed to be watched doing this, I mean, I think it was helpful. You guys are in a tough situation. I mean, you got the general population thinks, well, they can just stop when they want to stop. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that tons or read that tons, and it's not the case. You think I wanted to keep doing it? Absolutely not. But I think you really, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, I think you got to take your knowledge and your education and put it to use and try to make sure the spouse understands the gambler, and at the same time, be there for the wife or the spouse when they have significant questions about why he did this, why they did this, why do they do this. I mean, so that's it. Okay. Let me miss one question. Okay. What changes have you seen with friends and or family? That's a tough one. I think your true friends are still here. Your friends that only loved you for your position are gone. You find out who can actually forgive people. And the other thing you find out is, yes, my story was public, but there's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff in this world, and they have to keep it. They had the choice to keep it quiet. I didn't. I mean, newspapers, as you know, they can print truth and they can print halfway truths because some unidentified source told them something, which drives me nuts. But at the same time, my parents, they understand that, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I can't go here, I can't go there. So they've been supportive as far as that goes. Jessica's family has been supportive. Some of them will ask questions, some of them won't. I mean, those that ask questions, I'll answer. We have 2 good friends, John and Michelle, and there's a lady named Pam at Jessica's work that's been very supportive, and they help us get through it. But they're all fighting internal battles too. And I mean, some not as severe as mine, but everybody has issues. And I think once we lay that out on the table, you find out who your true friends are. And if family members don't want to be around you, they don't want to be around you. I mean, we're starting our new life. We got a second chance at life. So we're moving forward. If they want to stay behind, they stay behind.
And I think we've also gained some friends.
Yeah.
It is amazing the support that we had. We had a very difficult time and we had a very public situation, like Brad mentioned. But we also have gained people that we didn't know very well that are like family to us now. I think being open to people, we had a situation because we had to obviously be more guarded with the criminal case, but we had so much love and support, and those people have continued to stay friends with us. And it's really just about asking yourself what relationships are still healthy for us. So we've had some that maybe weren't so healthy, or people that couldn't come to grips with something, and then they came back later on, and we were able to work through those issues. So I would say, if anything, we probably have more friends.
They're better friends.
Better friends, stronger relationships. And, you know, I can't tell you how many times someone came over and sat on the couch because of what was going on so publicly with us and told us things I never would have imagined in their own lives and their struggles. And you just try your best to be kind to everybody and be open to letting them share these things that you would never repeat, so that they can do their own healing. You know, there's a lot of people who are struggling with things, and we've made these just really strong bonds with people over this.
The other question was, is what role did spirituality make a difference, or what role did it play for us? I think we're both religious people, and we did rely on our church, and the friends we have now, I think they're pretty spiritual. I think you have to believe in a higher power. If you don't have belief in a higher power, and I'm not telling you that what your higher power should be, but if you don't have a higher power, I think it's a struggle. And obviously we'd like to go to church more, but with our kids, I mean, we got one kid that's in Destination Imagination, and he practices and has tournaments, it seems like, the last few weekends. And then we got another boy that's in the sports that has had basketball tournaments the last 3 weekends, and then baseball starts up. So yes, we would like to be at church, but however, we do believe in our higher power, and we believe there's a role in life for it. He has a plan for us. If we didn't believe that, I don't know if you'd be talking to us today. I think you've got to believe there's something better on the other side of that fence. When it first came down, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if we're the most spiritual people in the world, but we did go to church. But as far as I think you can go to church two ways. Go to church just to make sure your name's on the checkoff list, or you go to church for a purpose. And I think before I was going with just to check something off my list for Sunday. But now I think when I go for a purpose, and I think that's made a difference. Jess, you got anything on that religion?
No, I completely agree with what you said.
Have your views on money changed? Yes. I mean, you got to have it to survive, but it's not the end all be all. Money isn't the greatest thing that charges our relationship anymore. My view on money is I don't want it in my hands. To be honest, I think I'm pretty confident that I have the ability not to go gamble, but why put that money in my hand and give myself an opportunity to make a bad choice in life? And I don't want to make bad choices. I mean, I can make bad choices on my own without putting money in my hand, without gambling. I mean, everybody's going to be making bad choices at some point in their life. I do not want to be tempted by it. But no, I mean, my view is I got to have it to survive, but it doesn't make me happy.
And I think we're much more giving of our money. Like before, he was obviously spending a lot of money at the casino, but we just, if somebody needs something, we're much more open to just say, okay. And, you know, if you need that, if you can't afford that for your child for Christmas, all right, here's the check. You know, I just think that we view it differently than we did before. It's not everything to us. We're good with our money. We've made a lot of really smart financial decisions after all this happened. We're much better at budgeting our money, but I also think we realize that we just want to do the right thing for other people too, and for ourselves to have what we need.
And don't need.
And sometimes what we want. Yeah,
I'm
because we work hard.
I'm trying to talk her into buying me a Nintendo Switch so I can play with when she's full. I haven't got there yet. But it's just stuff like that. I mean, if we want to go buy something, we buy it. I mean, and we have the funds to do it now. It's not about, well, this is my money for gambling. We're not getting this. I mean, we just get it. And it's the essential stuff like clothes, things like that. Before, I would just wear the same junk over and over and over and over and never buy anything, or soles with holes in them. When it was wet out, water would leak through. But you know what? If I spent 80 or 90 bucks on a pair of dress shoes, then that's 80 or 90 bucks less than I'd have for gambling. Right now, it's not like that. If I need that and I got to have it, I'll go out and get it. Now, the time is, and the point is now is finding the time to go do that stuff. But it's not because I'm out gambling. It's because I'm involved with the everyday life of my kids. And they keep us hopping. So.
And that has changed dramatically too. I mean, I was basically a single parent for a long time and thought it was due to his job, which I think initially it was. And then obviously he was gambling. So to have him here and co-parenting is a much different ballgame than it was before.
And to be honest with you, I mean, I think most of the community is okay with seeing me and being around me. I'm coaching both of my kids' baseball team, and they're based in the same community that wanted to hang me from a tree. So, I mean, I'm coaching two teams. I mean, I'm the head coach of my oldest boys' team. I assist with the other boys' team. But I just think we just need to move forward and keep driving and keep just being ourselves. So. Our slide here talks about Gam-Anon, which I think I talked about. I think, don't get me wrong, I think GA and Gam-Anon has helped. But just keep in mind that when you guys refer people to these groups, that they're not professionals. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for you guys to go into one and see what the makeup of the group is. Because some of these groups are led by people that there's a single person that wants to do all the talking and all the counseling, and they think they're a professional. That's my thing. Is the other thing is I think insurance. I think it's ridiculous that only Franklin County people can go to Maryhaven. I think it's ridiculous that only Clark County people can go to this. As far as I know, this is a state. It's state money, so they should be able to be treated. If you live in Cleveland and somebody wants to drive on an hour to see you because they have a connection with you, because I think that's important, they should be allowed to do it. It shouldn't always be about insurance and, well, I can't treat you because you're from this county. Well, it's about comfortability too, as far as the counselor, picking out your counselor. It's not something you can do in a 5-second period.
Or if you can't find help.
Right, or if you can't find help.
I mean, if you can't find help in your area, then you should be able to get it somewhere else.
And I think you guys have a tough job. I think you need to counsel the addict, but I also think you need to go after the other people that he or she has affected. I mean, I know you have restraints with HIPAA or whatever it may be, or restraints on what county you're from or what information you can share. But I think the state needs to trust you as professionals and say, this is what we need to do to be able to do in order to adequately provide counseling. You got anything else on that?
No.
And I think the other thing is it leads back to you guys. The family has to understand the addiction process. If you don't know the addiction process and what an addict is struggling with, it's tough to help them. And I think that's where you guys' help would help the most. I mean, I don't know all your roles in life, but I know Andy has helped a lot with that. Bruce has helped a lot with that. I think you got to educate him. Hey, his brain doesn't function like my brain, or her brain doesn't function like your brain. I mean, I think it's okay. And I think sometimes tough love is better than no love. And I think you guys need to be straightforward. I mean, uh, don't be wishy-washy, I guess, with these people.
Yeah, I appreciated the straightforwardness. And I think if you find somebody to work with that you work well with, then that's beneficial too. So um, it isn't always easy to find help. It was really difficult for us. And my hope is that now that we're a few years out from that, that is getting better for people, that they're more able to find the assistance that they need. Because if you are a person who's in trouble and you're calling and calling and not getting anything, then the odds are you might be going back out to gamble. So I would hope that I know that everybody's working on those things to make sure that um, that person is getting help. I don't know what would have happened if Brad would have been the one making those phone calls and not me, because you really do hit a lot of walls when you're trying to get support.
Is that it? That's the last slide.
Is that the last slide, Derek?
The only other slide is one that I added, and that is just related to any additional questions that you all have. So thank you for engaging with Brad and Jessica today, and thank you, Jessica and Brad, for telling us your story and your journey through the recovery process. If you do have additional questions, again, feel free to ask them in the question section of your GoToWebinar navigation panel. As you're thinking of those final questions, also wanted to let you know that we have our April webinar that will be held on April 23rd at 2 p.m. And the focus of April's webinar is Gamblers Anonymous and Gam-Anon. So really building upon some of the things that Brad and Jessica talked about, better understanding the GA community and how you can further engage with them. Also, as a reminder that today's session has been recorded and will be sent along with your certificate of attendance and the handouts for today, and that will be sent your way probably on Friday. And we'll look for additional things that come up. Got a not a question, but a comment from Scott Anderson said, "Great job, thank you both." And I think we can definitely echo that. And thank you, Brad and Jessica, for all of your support in not only your webinar today, but also all you do to really promote the need for broader services related to problem gambling.
And Derek, just so you're aware,
yes, sir.
To everybody out there, if they need help or talking to other groups or whatever, we'd be more than happy to do that, especially when our schedule allows it. But I mean, I think it's a serious problem. I think it gets swept under a rug. And I also feel like as a counselor or as a psychologist, whatever your role is in this, your back's against the wall with everything on this. I mean, and anything we can do to help, we'd be more than happy to do it.
Thank you. And just one final question, and this one's for Brad. How do you combat the feeling that you could go back to gambling, but just do it differently? Oh, so how do you combat that feeling that that you could go back and gamble, but just do it differently than last time?
Like you're saying that I could go back and not be compulsive and just throw coins in the machine and leave once I'm done?
Sure. How do you battle that?
How do I battle it? Is because I've had my second chance in life. I know if I screw up again, the odds are I probably won't have my wife and my kids. So fear is always a good motivator, in my opinion, of losing what I love. But I think also is I always have, like, there's a list on my phone, like all the things I've done that was a result of gambling. And if you saw this list, which is, I don't share it with anybody, that list there's not one positive on it. So before I'd pull into a parking lot, or if I did pull in a parking lot, I'd read through this list of stuff, and I think it's like 10 or 11 things, and there's nothing on it that would say, yes, you need to go gamble. It's like almost lost my family, lost my job. I mean, my character was assassinated. I mean, things like this. I mean, there's nothing in that list, and I don't read it. I've not read it, but I have it in my phone, and I know if I pull into a casino parking lot, this is what I agree. Uh, it's reality. I mean, I can't be like my general people, general fellows, as far as wanting to go into a casino or do this. I mean, I can't. Uh, I could not function. Now, uh, thankfully, I think I'm happy enough with my life right now that those thoughts have not crept up into my mind. But I'm 44 years old, and hopefully, I live to at least see another 30 years. Uh, Not saying that in the next 30 years those thoughts don't creep back up in my mind. I mean, when things go downhill or when things aren't looking up. But you got to have a safeguard. And my safeguard is I've made this list of everything that gambling has done to help my life. And not one of them has helped my life at all. It hurt it. I mean, it's made the walls come caving in on me. So keep it in perspective. I mean, and then I got some people that I can call. I got a phone list in there of GA members. I can call Bruce. Bruce normally will call me back. Uh, Jessica has Scott Anderson's number. I'm sure I could call him at any time. Uh, there's people out there. I guess if I really wanted to do it, if somebody would really want to do it, you could do it because you don't use your health support system out there. But right now, that's the way I do it. I mean, I just make sure I keep what happened in check and make sure I'm well aware of it and make sure I use my support system.
Thank you. And I think that wraps up all the questions that we have today. Should you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to me at dlongmire@pgnohio.org or call me at 614-750-9899. Thanks again to Brad and Jess, and we look forward to talking to you next time about GA. Thanks, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of March and Prom Gambling Awareness Month. And goodbye, all.
Thank you.